Today, we're going to be talking about percentage of numbers. Let's read. 64 out of the 80 people in a company meeting were managers. What percentage of the meeting attendees were managers? Whenever we're solving for percentage of number problems, I always like to start with a proportion. So here's the proportion. Percent over 100 equals part over whole. Notice that we have three parts to this proportion. We have the percent, we have the part, and we have the whole. So I like to just make a note of that on the side. Percent, part, and our whole. Do we know what the percentage is? Well, that's what we're trying to find. What percentage of the meeting attendees were managers? We don't know that, so I'm going to use X to represent the unknown amount. Do we know the part? Well, 64 out of the 80 people were managers. So our part is the 64. And then there's 80 people in total. And then we're just going to substitute our values here in this proportion. So our percent is X, we don't know what it is, over 100 equals my part is 64 over my whole, which is 80. Now, if you remember how to solve proportions, we cross multiply to make a new equation. So x times 80 is 80x. And then we're just going to cross multiply the other product. 64 times 100 is 6,400. And if you divide both sides by 80, isolate the variable x, you're going to get x equals 80. And what does our 80 represent here? Well, it represents our percent here. So 80% of the meeting attendees were managers. Here's another problem. So we're asked to find what is 45% of 58. So again, we're going to write out our equation. Percent over 100 equals part over whole. Do we know our percent? Well, the problem gives it to us, 45%. So I'm going to make a note of that. Do I know my part or my whole? Well, it looks like I'm trying to find a part of 58. So that tells me that my whole is 58. And the part is what I'm trying to find. So using what we have here, we're just going to plug it into our proportion here. 45 over 100 equals our part. We don't know what that part is. 45% represents the part of 58, which is our whole. We don't know what that part is. X over 58. And we're just going to cross multiply. So 100 times x, we get 100x. 45 times 58, we're gonna get 2,610. And then to isolate the x here, what are we doing to x here? We're multiplying it by 100. What's the opposite of multiplying by 100? It's dividing by 100. And we're going to get x equals 26.1. What does the 26.1 represent? Well, it represents our part, our 45% of 58. Here's another problem. Again, we're going to start by writing out our proportion here. Percent over 100 equals part over whole. I'm going to make a note of those on the side. Percent, do we know what that is? Well, the problem tells us 40%, so that is my percent here. Do we know the part or the whole? Well, this 38 is 40%, so a part of what number? So that's implying that my part is 38 and the whole, which I don't know, I'm trying to find, I'm going to use x to represent that. So plugging in what we have here into our proportion up here, we have 40 over 100 equals our part, which is 38, over my whole, which is x, and cross multiplying to form a new equation. 40x equals 100 times 38 is 3,800. Solving for x, if I divide both sides by 40, x equals 95. What does the 95 mean in the context of our problem? The 95 is our whole, and 38 is 40% of that whole of 95.